Okay, good morning, everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning, my friends, as we are studying together Perashat Devarim. Perashat Devarim is the first parasha of the final book of the Torah. The final book is a book that really it's a one long speech from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is giving a log. He's explaining where they've been and what they've done wrong, and he's basically using this last month of his life as an opportunity to rebuke the Jewish people for the things that they've done wrong over the last 40 years in the desert. So he starts, giving them a summary. He's explaining where we've been and what we're up to now. So he says as follows: Va'omar alechem ba'etahi lemor. So right after, at that time, he's going back 40 years. I said, Lo uchal levadi se'etetchem. I cannot carry you guys by myself. Adonai Elohechem hirba etchem. God has multiplied you. V'hinechem hayom kechovei hashamayim larov. And you are today as numerous as the stars in the sky. And then he says, Adonai Elohei avotechem Yosef alechem kachem 1000 pe'amim. May God give you 1,000 times more. May He bless you as He promised. And then he continues, And how can I bear unaided the trouble of you and the burden and the bickering? Moshe is basically saying, you're too much for me. I couldn't do it alone, and I needed help. And the Orah Hayim notices that Moshe takes a break over here, right here, for one pasuk, a tangent, where he blesses the people. Because he starts by saying, I couldn't, you were too much. And by the way, Hashem should bless you with 1,000 times more. And so I needed help from Hashem. You see, like pasuk 11 is almost like in parentheses. Pasuk Yud Aleph, if you're opening a Humash. The Orah Hayim says, because the Zohar, he explains based on what the Zohar writes, Sha'al yedei haskarat ribui tovah, yaf'il hashlatat koach b'mastin lehara. That when somebody mentions the abundance of good that someone else enjoys, one inflicts an ayin hara, an evil eye upon that person. There's a certain force, negative forces, negative energies that exist. When you look at somebody else's blessing, when you mention somebody else's blessing, you are giving ayin hara. There's a certain spiritual fact, law of nature called the evil eye. Matter of fact, we just studied this morning the Gemara Masechet Berachot. There was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera, he was a short man. That's why they called him Zera from the word Ze'ir. He was short. Rabbi Zera did something that you should not do today. Do not try this at home. Not advised. But Rabbi Zera, he would go every month into the oven and he would sit in the oven, standing on a hot oven floor to see, he wanted to see if he was still righteous, if his feet would burn. If he was righteous, his feet would stay protected, or if not, they would get burned. And he wanted to know, how is he doing on the totem pole of spirituality, of righteousness? So every month he would go in the oven and stand in the oven, literally like Avraham Avinu, to see if he would be protected. How was he doing? If the fires of Gehenna would sholet, if they would have an effect on him. And again, not to be practiced today, even if you think you're a very big tzaddik. But Rabbi Zera did this, and he would always come out unscathed. One time, he came out singed thighs. Because somebody, Gemara said, put ayin hara on him. They put the evil eye on him. So there's such a thing called ayin hara. We should be very careful not to flaunt our wealth, not to show off. People are watching, and we don't want people to start talking about our money. So always stay private, stay out of people's conversation. And also you mind your own business. Don't talk about other people, because you could be unintentionally giving them ayin hara. So because Moshe mentioned and he said, I couldn't. You guys had so many people. I couldn't do it alone. By the way, you should guys, and Moshe realized that he just said you have so many people. So based on the Zohar, he was basically now putting the evil eye on them. So and therefore Moshe needed to counter this ayin hara that he just placed. Because he was basically underscoring the abundance of the Jewish people by saying that you're too numerous, you're too much for me already. There's too many of you, which is a nice thing to be too many. But it's also putting now ayin hara. Yesh bazeh hashash, there's the concern now that they be subjected to the evil eye. Lazeh hiskir shemo yitbarach. Therefore over here he says, Hashem hirba etchem. Now you're going to counter that with first of all using the name of God, and secondly he would say Yosef alechem kachem elef pe'amim. May Hashem continue to bless you. Like we said, to counter the evil that was placed maybe on them. Okay, so now he returns and he says, okay, how am I going to do it all by myself? Lo ucha, I can't do it. Havu lachem anashim chachamim uvonim. I want you guys from each tribe pick men that are wise, v'asimem berashechem, and I will place them at your heads. Moshe over here is saying something interesting, that each one has to have judges from their own tribe. He says, because like I explained back in Parashat Pinchas, he says, when Moshe Rabbeinu was asking for a leader for the Jewish people after him, after he dies, he says back in Parashat Pinchas, he says, God, please pick someone that's going to be a man of winds. What does that mean, a man of winds? A man of ruchot, a man of spirits of all flesh. So over there he explained, because at the end of the day, people are different. No one looks alike, no one thinks alike. And it would be impossible to find one man that would be able to properly relate to everybody. Very hard. Moshe was able to. Moshe was a different level. But to find someone like that, you know, where you came from, even mentality. You could have today the biggest rabbi in the world. He comes to America. If he doesn't understand the American mentality, if you're the biggest rabbi, you're not going to be able to relate to the people here. People are not going to like you. You have to speak their language. So Moshe understood you need a man of ruchot. It's not enough, God, to pick a great leader. It's not enough to be a big rabbi. Being a big Talmid Chacham not enough. To be a leader, Moshe says, you have to be Eluhe HaRuchot. You got to be a man of spirit, a man that understands people, a man that understands his audience, a person that understands to relate, to come down to where they are. That's a great leader. A great leader is not someone that's up here and says, I'm here, and you guys, you know. That's not a good leader. The good leader has to go down to where they are and help them. And if you can't relate, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. You may as well just stay where you are. Don't bother. So that's why he says you guys have to pick people from your own tribe. People that could understand your mentality. That's the best way to have someone relate. And then I'll place them as the judges. Vata'anu, and you guys came, and what did you say back to this response? Tova davar asher dibarta. Good idea. Good idea. This is where the system came into place. Remember Moshe Rabbeinu with Yitro's advice? He was originally judging all alone, and then he was getting worn out. So he decided to make a pyramid system where there would be heads of tens, heads of hundreds, heads of thousands, right? And then him. So if you have a small, regular court, family court, you have a small issue with your neighbor, you don't have to come to me. You don't have to call the biggest rabbi in the world if you have a small question. Rabbi, what bracha are peanuts? You don't pick up and you call Hacham Uvadia from Israel, wait 30 minutes on the phone to ask Hacham Uvadia what bracha are peanuts. You could ask any rabbi would know that. The question gets a little harder, then you need a head rabbi of the city. If it gets a little bit harder, you need to call the rabbi of America. If it's really hard, you got to call the rabbi of the world. So he created this system of hierarchy of rabbis, different level, tier, judges, and the people said it's a good idea. We like it. Now, was that good or bad that they liked the idea? Rabotenu Amru, our rabbis in the Sifri said that it was a rebuke. Moshe is rebuking them when he says to them here, you like the idea. That's part of the problem. It's a problem that you like the idea. Sha'amar lahem haya lachem lomar Rabbeinu. You should have told me, Rebbe, our teacher, Lemina el mod. Who is better to learn from? You or your student? We don't want a judge. We don't want someone in between. We want you. You deprived yourself of food and drink for 40 days in order to acquire the Torah for us. We want you, Moshe. That's what you should have said. So why didn't they say that? Why didn't they say that? Says Moshe with a little bit of a wink and a rebuke in his eyes. Yodeya ani, I know your thoughts. You knew that if I was judging you, I'm unbribable. But if there's going to be a judge from your own town, maybe you could give him a little gift, a little bribe. I know really that's why you were happy. You were happy because now it's going to be a rigged system. Ora Hayim though, that was from the Sifri, the rabbis. Ora Hayim though says, but maybe actually it's a praise. Yisrael itza'aru ala davar. Really, they wanted Moshe to judge him themselves. Aval lehana'at Moshe mahalu. But they forgave. They were willing to relinquish their personal preference for Moshe's sake. Because they knew that it was wearing him down. They knew that Moshe was overexerting himself. That it was making him exhausted. And therefore, they said, Tova davar. If that's better for you, Moshe, then we accept. Really, we want you to judge us all day. Who's better than Moshe Rabbeinu? But for your sake, Moshe, we understand that it's better. And really, it could be Moshe was saying both. Maybe Moshe is saying to the righteous, you guys wanted it for my sake. And for the wicked, he was also saying, you guys also wanted it, but you wanted it for your sake. But either way, you guys wanted it. So we decided to set up judges. So I took your leaders, anashim chachamim ve'yeduim, men who were wise and experienced. Experience, my friends, by the way, don't underrate experience. It says you have to stand up for older people. Even if he's not a rabbi, you got to stand up. Why? Because he has experience. Life is the best teacher. People with experience, don't underestimate. It's unfortunate today that young people, when they have questions, they go to other young people. You got to go to old people. You got to go to people that know what they're talking about. People that have been there before, done that. Rehovam, as an example, the first time there was a split in the Jewish people, a civil war, was when Rehovam, who took over from his father, King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, the people came to him to request lower taxes. So he went and he asked the opinion of his friends, and he asked the opinion of the sages, of the elders. And the elders said one thing and the friends said another, and guess who he listened to? Unfortunately, he listened to his friend. His friends are people without experience. They say that a man with money meets a man with experience. The man with the experience walks away with the money. The man with the money walks away with an experience. So in life, you have to have experience. Hachamim ve'yedu'im. They have to know. They have to have been around. You learn a lot like that. That's why it's important for a person in life. It's not enough to learn from a book, a textbook. You could go to med school for 10 years. You could get 100 on every test. If that's a good score. I don't know what the scores are today. Whatever's a good number. And you get the best marks. And at the end of it all, you got to go to residency. What got to go to residency for? Why got to sit and learn from another doctor? I got better grades than him. The answer is, it doesn't matter. He has experience. You don't have that. It's important. Experience is very important in life. So he says, we need men that are wise and experienced. Sarei alafim, heads of thousands. Sarei me'ot, hundreds. Hamishim, 50s. Asarot, and tens. And then officials, you need officers. Policemen. V'atzaveh et shoftechem ba'et hahi. And then I commanded the judges. And I said, Shamoa ben achechem. Hear out your fellow. Ushfattem, and judge. Decide. Tzedek, righteously. Ben ishu ben ahiv ben gero. A Jew and another Jew, or even a stranger. Lo ta'kiru panim b'mishpat. Do not be partial in judgment. Kakaton gadol. Hear out low and high. Lo taguru b'nei ish. Fear neither party. Don't be afraid that one guy's rich, one guy's powerful. If I go against him, he's going to hurt me. Fear nobody. Show no favoritism. Two sides are two sides. This is very difficult. This is a very difficult thing. There's a beautiful, famous story. I forget the name of the rabbi. If anyone remembers, please let me know on the side of the chat. There was a great rabbi that they hired him to be the rabbi of the town. On the first day, one of the simpletons of the town came to the rabbi, and he said, Rabbi, he knocked on his door late at night. He said, Rabbi, I have a matter of dispute with the president of the community. Can you please help me? And Rabbi said, okay, tell the president to come to my house. The fellow says, you want me to go ask the president? He's going to slap me in the face. Who am I that I should go to the president of the town? He won't even look at me. He says, go and tell him the rabbi said to come. Okay, he went and he said to the president. He came back. He said, Rabbi, the guy slammed the door in my face. He says, don't even talk to me. The rabbi said, go and tell him that if he doesn't come right now, he's going to get in trouble. So he goes, he says, listen, the rabbi wants to speak to you. I told him that we have a problem and he wants to decide the matter. He said, you got to come. The president looked at the guy and said, go tell the rabbi that I'll be there tomorrow. Now it's late, I'm not coming. Guy goes back and forth. Rabbi, the guy said he's gonna come tomorrow. The rabbi said, go tell him if he doesn't come now, I'm putting him in chirim. Excommunicating the guy. The guy goes back. He says, tell the rabbi if he dares, he's going to be kicked out. Back and forth. Finally, the rabbi puts his foot down. He says, I don't care what he wants to do to me. He could kick me out. He could do whatever he likes. Tell him he's going to be here. So he goes. The man finally puts on his clothing. He comes all the way to the rabbi's house. The rabbi is a little bit nervous, to say the least. He just messed with the strongest guy in the community. And the man comes in, the president comes in, and he smiles and he says, Rabbi, congratulations. Mazal tov, mazal tov. The rabbi says, what, mazal tov? What are you talking about? He's like, mazal tov, Rabbi. The whole thing was a setup. We wanted to see how honest are you going to be as the rabbi of the town. Are you going to give favoritism to one or the other? You passed the test, Rabbi. Hazaku baruch. So, this is what Moshe is urging the judges. Don't worry about rich or poor. You have to be strong as a judge. You got to do what's right. Don't get swayed. Don't get bribed. The Or HaHaim wants to know, what does it mean? Shamoa ben ahechem. Listen to the litigants. What does it mean? Listen to the litigants. If it asks the Or HaHaim, hear them out. He says, Kasheh. What's the need for Moshe to instruct the judges to listen? Im lo yishme'u ma yadinu. Obviously they have to listen. If they don't listen to the arguments, on what are they going to base their judgment? What does that mean? Listen. Of course you got to listen. First thing you got to listen, and then you could judge. So Or HaHaim is going to give a few, I think, amazing lessons for life. Number one, Yirtzeh le'azhiram le'ithakem metoch hadvarim ha'ne'emarim ben ha'to'anim. Moshe is telling them that they actually have to listen from the words being spoken by the litigants, lehakir amitut ha'inyan, and to discern the true facts. What Moshe was saying was, don't only hear what they're saying, but you have to listen, shamoa, in between the lines. Try to listen deeper than what they're just saying. V'hagam she'al pi ha'te'anot, because sometimes you could have, based on pure arguments being presented, one litigant is going to emerge victorious. The other one is going to be liable. But let's say it's apparent from the mannerisms of their words, the movement of their lips, there is some kind of deception being going on, opposite of what you think the law should be. Let's say, one guy has all of his arguments very well prepared, but as a judge you realize, with your experience, that he's actually wrong. There's something here. Then you're allowed to judge. You must judge based on what with your eyes can see. You have to rule accordingly. So that's what Moshe is saying. Shamoa doesn't only mean listen, it means also haskala. There's an insight. There's an insight here that you have to have. There's a famous story Acham Ovadia brings that took place with the Gaon Mevilna. The Gaon Mevilna student, he had two litigants coming in front of him. Two witnesses testifying on a certain matter. And the rabbi, the judge, he knew that the litigants were lying. He knew it! He just couldn't catch their lie. He couldn't. They were well rehearsed, but he knew it. He just had a gut. And he decided to hand the matter over to his rabbi, the Gaon. So he says to them, listen, this is very complicated. Go to my Rebbe, the Gaon Mevilna, let him decide. They go to the Gaon Mevilna. He calls in one witness, he listens to his testimony. He calls in the other witness, he listens to his testimony. And right away he picked up there was something here. But again, he couldn't put his finger on it. So he kicks out the second one, he calls the first one, tell me your testimony again. Kicks him out, second one. And finally, he looks at them and he says, you guys are liars. You guys are rehearsed. You guys were bribed. And unless you admit right now, I'm going to be excommunicating the both of you. And the guys shook and they started, they got very nervous and they admitted. They admitted that they were being bribed. It was all set up. And they asked the rabbi, how did you know? How did you know that they were liars? And they go on the Vilna, look at what he said. He said the halakha says that two witnesses, if their testimony matches, and they're telling the truth. The Gaon of Vilna said, these two witnesses, their testimonies didn't match. Their testimonies were identical. It more than matched. It was word for word. I knew that they were rehearsed. So Moshe is saying to the judges, Shamoa, you have to hear. You have to be wise when listening. Use your sixth sense. Another example says, what does it mean, Shamoa? Our Gemara says in Masechet Makot, Shelo tiyeh Sanhedrin shamat mepi haturgeman. That the Sanhedrin, when they're listening to testimony, the Supreme Court of 71, they're not allowed to hear it from an interpreter. They have to hear it from the witness themselves. That's why the members of Sanhedrin, they had to speak all the languages. Because they couldn't hear it from an interpreter, they couldn't have translator. Today you have translators sometimes. You're not allowed to have a translator. All members had to speak all all languages, all 70 languages. That's why, by the way, Mordechai, remember Mordechai, a Yehudi? Remember that day that he overheard Bigtan and Teresh wanting to kill the king? How did he overhear? If you want to kill the king, you don't speak in public street. You don't speak, sitting on a park bench. So one of the answers is they spoke in a very, very foreign language to that country that nobody would understand. But they didn't realize that Mordechai sat on the Sanhedrin, so he had to know all the languages. That's how he understood what they were talking about. So that's why Moshe says, Shamoa, you have to be the one to hear. Velo mehaturgeman, you cannot hear from an interpreter. Moshe's, I think, lesson is over here that in life, when you hear a story, you have to hear it from the source. Because again, there's a lot to a story than just what's being said. When there's someone going through something, you have to speak to them directly. Don't hear from someone who heard from someone. You got to talk to them. No meturgeman, because there is a language of the heart. That when a person has a story, when a person has a circumstance that he's giving over from the heart, you could only hear that story with your own heart. That has to be person to person. You can't have somebody in between. Says the Ora Hayim, he continues and he says, Od yirtzeh, maybe what it also means, an additional approach of listening, Shelo yeh hashofet matzil panav, that a judge cannot show a cheerful face and raise his eyes towards one of the litigants, umashpil enav, while averting his eyes from the other one. Ela shetiyeh derech shemi'ah shaveh b'shnehem. Excuse me. That a judge has to hear both testimonies equally. And his countenance, his face, has to be equal to both. It cannot be that to one he's showing one smile, and to other one he's showing a frown. This is what it means to listen. It should be an equal type of listening between both brothers, both of the litigants. If you want to raise your eyes, you got to raise your eyes to both. If you want to lower, you have to lower to both. He says like this. Actually, not only should you treat them equally, but in a way maybe you shouldn't even look at either of them. Because it's possible that he'll misinterpret the judge's gaze, Shehu ayin yafeh yoter mimenu, that he's going to think you're looking at him with a friendlier look. Eyes speak a lot. In general, when you're sitting with someone, you don't listen with the ears, you listen with the eyes. Eyes are very important when listening. Very important when you're sitting down at dinner with the wife, to listen with the eyes. When someone's talking to you, don't only listen with the ears, looking around. No, you got to look at them and listen with your eyes. It's a different quality of listening. I had a student struggling with Shalom Bayit, and he said, I'm always there with my wife. I'm always around. But for some reason, she's always, no matter what, if I want to go play, if I want to go somewhere, she needs me there. She always wants me there. I'm like, maybe you're not giving her time. He's like, Rabbi, I give her so much time. I'm always listening to her. So I told him this idea. I said, okay, you know what? Try talking to her. When you're talking, try listening not with your ears. Try listening with your eyes. Look at her. Give her undivided 15 minutes. He said, what? 15? Rabbi, I give her 50. I give her 1,000. He said, don't give her 1,000. Give her 15 of quality listening, like this, looking with your eyes. Okay. So a few weeks later, he goes, Rabbi, you're a magician. I'm like, what happened? 15 minutes, Rabbi. That's all it takes. Every morning I wake up and I look at her and I talk to her for 15 minutes. And then I come home and we have dinner, my phone's away, and I look at her and I talk to her for 15 minutes. There's something very powerful about a gaze. Moshe is saying to the judges, be very careful how you look when someone's talking. I heard from the mouth of the great sage, Haviv alai keruhi, my very good friend, like my own life, my own spirit. Halohu Arav Rabbi Moshe Berdugo, the rabbi of Rav Moshe Berdugo. He was a great Moroccan Torah leader who lived in the 17th to the 18th century. Zichrono lehayeh ha'olam haba, may his memory be blessed. Shaya medakdek b'sha'at hadin sheyu einav lemata. He was very careful during judgment to keep his eyes downward. Velo haya noseh einav kol ikar. He wouldn't look up at all. Haya margish im haya noseh einav. And if he would ever notice that by mistake he raised his eyes towards one of the litigants out of necessity to look at him, to hear what he was saying, or to try to look at his facial expressions, immediately the opponent would become disoriented, discombobulated in his arguments, and he would be unable to express them effectively. Amazing. So this is another amazing lesson of life, my friends. How we have to be so careful with our eyes to be fair, to treat everyone equally, to show the same level of respect and attention to everyone, regardless of their status, their appearance, their background. How about in a classroom if you're a teacher? How important it is to make eye contact with your students, to give all your students equal opportunity. When they speak, avoid showing favoritism or bias. Don't look at one kid and smile when he gives an answer, and then another kid, when he gives an answer, you're looking like this. You know? You got to be equal. If you're a parent on a Shabbat table, or if your kids come to you, they come to you with problems or questions, or they want advice or whatever it is, you got to be a fair parent. You got to show all the children equal. That's an amazing lesson, a very important lesson. We have to remember that when we see somebody for the first time, we cannot judge them based on how they look. Over here he says he didn't want to look at them, because sometimes you look, you can be misled. The guy comes in with a nice suit. You have to just judge the person for what they're saying, not for how they look. That's not fair to the other party. It's very important what we foster an environment where people feel comfortable. People don't feel judged. Allow them to express themselves. A lot of times as a teacher, we could intimidate. Someone asks a question and we give a certain look. A look could say a lot. You know, I don't know if you ever play poker or you watch poker. They wear glasses because you could tell a lot from eyes. Realize that your eyes are giving over a lot of information. Just your eyes. I didn't say anything. What did I say? What did I say, Rabbi? I don't know why she's so angry at me. I didn't say anything. There's a lot more to what you say than the words that come out of your mouth. Our look. What look do we give over? A student asks a question in class. What look are you giving them after that question? Are you making them feel dumb? Are you making them feel intimidated? What kind of question is that? I'm at a camp for summer. I teach once a week. I go in, I give a Perashah class on Friday, girls camp. This past week, there was an overnight the night before, so it was pretty quiet. A lot of girls didn't show up. So I decided to do a Q&A. I said, any question that you would ever have that maybe you would feel uncomfortable asking in a classroom because your teacher, feel free, ask it now. I won't judge you. And it was amazing the questions that these girls had, such important questions for life. Questions that you need answers to. But they can't ask it in classroom because the teacher would label them as, atheist, or the teacher would label them as bad Jews if they would dare ask such questions. Just to ask, could you imagine that a teacher could label you for asking? How dare you even ask? The fact that you have the question shows there's something wrong with you. It's a big problem when we create an environment that our students, that our children don't feel comfortable to come and ask, to be curious. It stunts and it only harms. It only harms because these are questions that they have. If they don't get answers from us, they're going to go out and get answers from other people, and the answers they're going to get are not going to be the right answers, unfortunately. We have to be very careful with our eyes to always show, make people feel comfortable. The expressions that we give, allow people to share their feelings without feeling judged, without feeling, your eyes are ridiculing them, criticizing them. A rabbi saying, Lo habayshan lamed, velo hakapdan melamed. Someone embarrassed. If you're embarrassed, you can't learn. If you're embarrassed to ask questions, you'll never learn. But if you're kapdan, if you're always makpid, if you're always stuck and stubborn, if you're going to always show negative eyes, then no one's going to learn from you. No one's going to feel comfortable around you. So we have to create a comfortable environment. We have to be very mindful of our body language. Our body language. There is body language. What we say is, again, a lot more than what comes out of our mouths. How do we carry ourselves? What's our facial expressions? Our eyes, how do we look? A guy says something and you're like, right? You give it a look. You're basically telling the guy, you didn't say anything, but you're telling the guy, you're wrong, you're telling him. To remember that we have to always, again, provide equal opportunity. That everyone should feel welcome, feel that they're being heard just as much as the other guy. So I think these are the lessons of the Ora Hayim. And we have to realize the language of the eyes, my friends. The language of the eyes, a very powerful language. What we give over with what we're saying with our eyes. Okay, so this is the Ora Hayim. We'll stop over here, my friends. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.